The cold exile snow was falling heavy from the dark sky, covering the ground like a thick white blanket. The wind was sharp, cutting through skin like knives. At the center of the alien colony, a group of guards dragged a thin woman to the main gates. She was not just a woman, she was a widow. Her husband had died in the last war, fighting for the same colony that now rejected her. The council stood high on the walls, their cold eyes watching. One of them raised his hand and spoke loudly so that every citizen could hear. She has no place here anymore. Her husband is gone, her duty is gone. She is nothing but a burden. The colony does not waste food on the useless. Gasps came from the crowd, but no one stepped forward. No one dared to defend her. Fear was stronger than compassion. The guards pushed her hard, and she fell on her knees in the snow. Her thin clothes were not made for the storm. Her skin turned red and her breath came out as white mist. The great gates closed with a thunderous sound behind her. She was alone. The lights of the colony burned warm on the other side, but for her there was only darkness and cold. She wrapped her arms around her body, trembling. Memories came to her mind. Her husband's smile, his promise that he would always protect her, and the way he had left for war, never to return. She had thought the colony would care for her, because he had died bravely. But instead, they had thrown her away like broken glass. The snow kept falling. Her footsteps were weak, but she forced herself to move. She could not sit still, or she would freeze. The forest stretched in front of her, tall, dark trees bending under the weight of snow. Every sound in the night echoed, the snap of a branch, the howl of the wind, the crunch of ice under her feet. Her body grew heavier with every step. Hunger twisted inside her stomach, but there was no food, no fire, no hope. She looked back, once. The colony was still visible, lights shining like stars in the distance, but it felt like another world. She was no longer part of it. She walked deeper into the woods, the cold biting harder. Her fingers turned stiff, and her lips cracked. Each breath was painful. She whispered to herself, just one more step, only one more. But the truth was clear. If she stayed in the forest tonight, she would not survive until morning. The ground shook slightly under her, and her heart jumped. She turned her head quickly. Shadows moved between the trees. Her people often spoke of beasts that roamed in the snow, silent hunters with glowing eyes. Fear filled her chest. She tried to move faster, but her legs were weak. The sound grew closer. Crunch. Crunch. The steps were heavy, slow, and sure. She stopped shaking and turned around. For a moment she saw only white and dark shapes. Then, two yellow eyes appeared in the distance. Her heart nearly stopped. The beast was real. She stumbled backward, her breath quick. Snow caught her feet and she fell to the ground. She tried to crawl, but the snow was too thick. The glowing eyes came closer and closer. She closed her eyes, whispering, "This is the end." But then a sudden light broke through the forest. A warm glow, soft and golden, unlike the harsh cold of the colony. It came from far away through the trees, like a candle in the endless dark. Her heart fought between fear and hope. Was it another trick? Was it only her tired mind playing games? She forced herself to crawl toward the light, each movement slow and painful. Behind her, the yellow eyes faded back into the shadows as if the creature feared the glow. Her body was numb. She dragged herself forward, her arms sinking into the snow. The light grew brighter, stronger. She could now see a small house made of wood and stone, smoke rising from its chimney, warmth spilling out from its windows. She whispered weakly, "A house. Someone lives here." Her strength was almost gone. She tried to stand, but her knees failed. Crawling, she reached the last stretch of snow before the door. She raised her trembling hand and knocked just once before collapsing on the ground. The door creaked. A shadow moved inside. She heard the sound of footsteps. Slowly, the door opened wider, and the warm light spilled over her frozen body. Voice, deep but calm, spoke from above her. What are you doing here in this storm? She lifted her eyes for the first time. It was not one of her people. It was a human. Her mind went blank. The colony had always warned her kind about humans, calling them dangerous, selfish, and untrustworthy. And now, here she was, on her knees, frozen and helpless at the mercy of one. The human looked at her, his eyes filled not with hate but with concern. He bent down, offering his hand. The widow hesitated. Fear told her to stay still, but hope whispered inside her heart. Snow kept falling. The cold was still cruel, but in front of her was a door, open wide, waiting for her choice. And in that moment, her fate was no longer written by the colony, but by the decision she would make at this stranger's door. A human's door. The human stood in the doorway, his face half hidden in the warm glow of the firelight behind him. The storm raged outside, snow whipping around like angry spirits. For a moment, he did not move. He only looked at the alien widow lying weak on the ground, her body almost frozen. Her chest rose and fell slowly. Her lips were pale, her eyes half shut. She had no strength left. The human bent down, his hand steady though his eyes carried worry. He touched her shoulder gently, and the widow flinched, a wave of fear rising in her heart. She had been told all her life that humans were dangerous, that they could never be trusted. But now, when her own people had thrown her away, it was a human standing over her. "Can you hear me?" he asked softly. His voice was deep but calm, not harsh like the council's. Her throat was too dry to answer. She tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. "Help!" The human did not wait. He lifted her up in his arms with surprising strength. She was light, fragile like thin glass. He carried her inside, closing the door against the storm. Warmth hit her at once. The crackle of fire, the smell of cooked meat, the soft glow of candles. It felt unreal, like a dream. He placed her near the fire, wrapping a heavy blanket around her trembling body. "Stay still," he said. "You need heat, or the cold will kill you." The widow sat weakly, her body shaking. She looked around the room. It was simple. Wooden walls, shelves with tools, a table with books, and a bed in the corner. Everything spoke of a quiet, solitary life. The human poured water into a cup and held it near her lips. "Drink." Her hands trembled as she tried to take it, but he held it steady for her. The warm water slid down her throat, burning and soothing at the same time. Tears filled her eyes. She had not felt kindness for so long that it almost hurt. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you helping me?" The human looked at her, his face calm but unreadable. "Because you would die out there." Simple words, but they cut deep. She lowered her eyes, shame and relief mixing inside her. As the fire warmed her skin, her thoughts became clearer. She remembered the glowing eyes in the forest, the beast that had almost reached her. She shivered again, not from cold, but from fear. The human noticed. "Something was following you, wasn't it?" She nodded weakly. "Eyes. In the dark." His expression hardened. "Wolves. They hunt in storms. You're lucky they didn't reach you before I did." He stood and moved to the window, checking. The forest outside. The storm howled, covering all tracks. For now, the danger was hidden, but he knew it would return. The widow watched him. He was tall, his shoulders broad, his movements strong but careful. There was no cruelty in him, only quiet strength. She wondered why her people had painted humans as monsters. This man seemed nothing like what she had been told, but fear still lingered. What if he wanted something in return? What if his kindness had a hidden price? "Do not fear," he said suddenly, as if reading her thoughts. "You can rest here tonight. No one will harm you under this roof." His words carried a weight, like a vow. She closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling her down. The fire's warmth wrapped around her, but her heart still beat fast. She had stepped into a stranger's house, a human's house, and her life now rested in his hands. Hours passed. The storm outside grew wilder. The human moved quietly, placing more wood on the fire, cooking food, and sharpening a blade near the table. Every sound echoed in her half-dreaming mind. When she woke again, the smell of food filled the room. He placed a plate near her, meat and bread, steaming hot. "Eat. You need strength." She hesitated. Taking food from him felt dangerous, but her hunger was stronger than fear. She ate slowly, her hands still trembling. Each bite brought life back into her body. As she ate, the human finally spoke again. "Why were you outside the walls? Why did your people leave you in the storm?" Her throat tightened. Pain filled her chest. "Because my husband is dead. He died in their war, and they said I was useless." The human's jaw tightened. His eyes grew colder, but not toward her. "Useless?" "He died for them, and they abandoned you." His anger was quiet but sharp. He looked into the fire, his thoughts heavy. The widow lowered her head. She felt both shame and relief. Shame, because her people had discarded her. Relief, because this human seemed to understand her pain better than her own kind. But outside, beyond the storm, shadows still moved. In the colony, whispers spread. The council had learned the widow was alive, that she had found shelter, and they were not pleased. Inside the wooden house, the fire burned bright. But the widow and the human did not know that this night was only the beginning of a storm far greater than snow and wolves. The door had opened once. It would change both their lives forever. Trust and fear. The storm had calmed by morning, but the world outside was still frozen white. Snow lay heavy on the trees, and silence spread across the forest like a blanket. Inside the small wooden house, the fire still burned, though slower now. The widow opened her eyes. For a moment she forgot where she was. The warmth, the smell of wood smoke, the sound of crackling fire. It all felt strange after the cruel cold of exile. Then her gaze fell on the human and fear returned to her chest. He was sitting at the table, sharpening a blade. The metal scraped slowly against the stone, each sound echoing in her mind. He looked calm, but his strength was clear. She remembered the warnings of her people. Humans are dangerous. Humans are unpredictable. She sat up, clutching the blanket tighter. The human noticed and spoke quietly. "You are safe here. No one will hurt you." But words could not erase years of fear. She stared at him, trying to read his face. Why had he helped her? What did he want in return? He set the blade down and looked at her. "You still don't trust me." Her lips trembled. "Why should I? My people said humans are cruel." His eyes narrowed, but his voice stayed calm. "And what did your people do to you?" The question cut like a knife. She lowered her head, ashamed. She could not answer. He was right. Her own colony had cast her out like garbage, while this human had carried her from death to firelight. Still, fear whispered inside her heart. What if he turned on her tomorrow? What if she was nothing but a burden again? The human stood and moved to the window, looking out at the snow. "They will come for you," he said slowly. Her chest tightened. "The colony?" He nodded. "Leaders hate unfinished stories. They will not like that you survived the exile. They fear truth." She felt her body grow cold again, but this time, not from the storm. She imagined the council's eyes, the guards' harsh voices. If they found her here, they would kill her. Or worse, make her disappear silently so no one ever questioned their power. The widow whispered, Maybe I should leave. I should not bring danger to your home." The human turned sharply, his voice firm. "If you leave, you will not last a night. The wolves will find you. The cold will claim you. Do you want to die because of their cruelty?" Tears filled her eyes. She wanted to argue, but she had no strength. He was right again. Silence filled the room, broken only by the fire's crackle. Finally, the human sat across from her. His eyes were steady. "If you want, I will protect you, but you must decide, trust me or fear me. You cannot live with both." Her heart pounded. Trust. A word she had almost forgotten. Her own people had betrayed it. Could she really give it to a human? Before she could answer, a noise echoed outside. A branch snapped, heavy footsteps crushing snow. The human's hand moved fast to his blade. He signaled her to stay quiet. They both listened. The sound grew nearer, slow but sure. Shadows moved beyond the window. Her breath caught. "The colony," she whispered. The human shook his head. "No. Too early. This is something else." The footsteps stopped just outside the door. For a moment, silence ruled. Then came a deep growl, low and hungry. The widow's heart froze. Wolves. The human grabbed his weapon and stood by the door. The growls turned to scratching, claws raking against wood. The beasts had followed her scent from the forest. The widow pressed her hands over her mouth to stop her scream. Her eyes filled with terror as the door shook. The human looked back at her, his eyes sharp but calm. "Stay by the fire. Do not move." He opened the door in one swift motion. The storm wind rushed in, carrying snow. 3 wolves stood in the snow, their yellow eyes glowing, teeth bared. The widow gasped. She expected the human to shut the door, to hide. But instead, he stepped outside, facing them head-on. The wolves growled louder, circling. The human held his blade steady, his body still as stone. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the largest wolf lunged, steel flashed in the air. The widow shut her eyes, but she heard the clash of blade and beast, the cry of pain, the roar of battle. She pressed her hands together, trembling, praying silently, though she had no gods left. The sound stopped. Silence fell again, broken only by heavy breathing. Slowly, she opened her eyes. The human stood in the snow, his blade red, his chest rising and falling. The wolves lay motionless at his feet. His eyes burned with quiet fire as he looked back at her. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. His voice was calm but firm. "Do you still think humans are cruel?" She could not answer. Her heart was too full, fear, shock, and something new. Respect. The firelight danced across his face as he sat again. He wiped the blade clean, as if killing 3 beasts was nothing but a simple task. For the first time, the widow looked at him not with fear, but with wonder. Maybe the colony was wrong. Maybe the human was not a monster. Maybe, just maybe, he was her only chance at life. Outside, the snow buried the bodies of the wolves. But inside, something new began to grow. A fragile trust born in fire and blood. Shadows of the colony. Far away behind the tall gates of the colony, the council sat in a circle. Their faces were hidden by thick hoods, their eyes sharp like knives. The storm had ended and the news had reached them. The widow was not dead. She had survived the exile. The leader of the council slammed his hand on the table. "Impossible. No one survives a night in that storm." Another voice hissed. She was seen near the human's house. He took her in. Silence fell. The word human carried weight. The council exchanged looks of fear and anger. One of them leaned forward. "If she lives, our decision looks weak. The people will question us. They will whisper that we are cruel. If they believe her story, our power will break." The leader's voice was sharp. "Then we will erase the story, we will erase her." Back in the wooden house, the widow sat near the fire, her body warm but her heart heavy. The human was fixing the door, repairing the scratches from the wolves. His movements were steady, like he had done this 1,000 times. She watched him, quietly. He had saved her life twice now, once from the storm and once from the beasts. But fear still clung to her. Not fear of him anymore, but fear of what would come from the colony. Finally, she spoke. "They will come for me. The council does not allow weakness to live. If they find me here, they will punish you too." The human did not stop working. He looked up at her, calm but strong. Let them come. His words shook her. He spoke as if he had no fear of them at all. She wanted to believe in that strength, but she knew the colony's cruelty. They controlled everything, and they hated humans most of all. That night, as the fire burned low, she dreamed of her husband again. She saw his face, heard his voice. "You must live," he whispered, "even if the world turns against you." She woke with tears, the echo of his words heavy in her heart. The next morning, shadows moved in the forest. A group of colony guards marched silently, their weapons sharp, their orders clear. They carried no banners, no lights. This mission was not meant to be seen. The leader of the squad spoke coldly. "The widow must be taken. If the human resists, kill him." Their boots sank into the snow as they moved closer to the small house. Inside, the human was sharpening his blade again, the same calm look on his face. But his eyes flicked to the window. He could sense movement, the way a hunter senses prey before it shows itself. "They're here," he said quietly. The widow froze. "The council?" He nodded. "Yes." Her hands shook. "You should let them take me. If you fight them, they will kill you. I am not worth your life." The human turned to her, his eyes steady like fire. "Do not say that again. Your life is worth more than their lies." The words pierced her heart. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not even her own people. The sound of boots grew louder outside. Snow crunched. Voices whispered. The human blew out the candles, leaving only the glow of the fire. Shadows filled the room. He moved to the door, his blade ready. The widow pressed herself against the wall, fear choking her breath. A loud knock shook the wood. "Open!" a guard's voice thundered. "By order of the colony, hand over the widow." The human did not move. His voice was calm, but strong, enough to cut through the night. "She is under my roof, and no one takes what I protect." The guards growled in anger. "Do not defy the council, human. You are nothing here. Open the door, or we burn this house down." The widow's heart pounded. She wanted to scream, to beg him to let them take her, but something inside stopped her. She could not move. She could only watch. The human tightened his grip on the blade. His voice dropped, cold as the snow outside. "Try." The silence after. That word was heavy. Dangerous. The guards outside exchanged glances. This was not the response they expected. The widow felt her breath catch. In that moment, she realized something powerful. The colony had strength, but this human had something they lacked: courage without cruelty. He stood alone, yet he stood unbroken. The night air outside filled with tension. Wolves howled far in the distance, as if the forest itself knew what was about to happen. The human stood tall, ready to fight not for himself, but for her. And the widow, for the first time since her exile, felt not fear, but hope. Hope in the snow. The wooden door shook again under the fists of the colony guards. Their voices thundered in the cold night. "Last warning, human. Open the door, or we burn it with both of you inside." Inside, the widow's body trembled. Her hands gripped the blanket, her eyes wide with terror. She whispered, "Please, they will kill you. I should go. Maybe if I give myself, they will leave you." The human looked at her, his face calm but firm. "No. If they take you, they win. If you go back, they will silence you forever, and the truth will die with you." His words cut deep. She realized this was not just about her survival. It was about something greater. The human was not only protecting her life, he was protecting her voice. The fire crackled low. The human moved closer to the door, blade in hand, eyes steady. "Stay behind me," he said softly. The widow nodded weakly. Fear pulled her heart down, but a new feeling rose too: trust. Outside, the guards gave the signal. With a heavy kick, the door burst open, splinters flying into the room. Snow and cold rushed inside. The guards stepped through, their armor shining, in the firelight, their weapons raised. The leader sneered. "Step aside, human. This is colony law." The human did not move. He raised his blade, his voice sharp like steel. "Your law is cruelty. I don't follow cruelty." The guards roared and charged. The widow screamed as the fight exploded. The human moved with fierce speed, his blade flashing in the firelight. Steel clashed against steel, the sound ringing through the house. He fought with no hesitation, each strike full of purpose. The guards expected fear, but they found resistance. Two fell quickly, their weapons knocked away, their bodies thrown into the snow. The others pressed harder, surrounding him. The widow's heart raced. She could only watch, her body frozen with terror. Every time a blade swung near him, her chest tightened, afraid it would be the last. The human fought like the storm itself, strong and unstoppable, but there were too many. A guard's strike cut across his arm, blood staining his sleeve. He gritted his teeth but did not fall. The widow cried out, "Stop, please stop!" But the guards ignored her. Something broke inside her. Fear turned into fire. She grabbed a burning log from the fireplace, the heat biting her skin, and swung it at the nearest guard. Flames caught his cloak, and he fell back with a scream. The human looked at her for a brief moment, surprised but proud. "Stay strong," he told her. The fight grew wilder, the room filled with smoke, sparks, and the sound of struggle. At last the guard stumbled back, retreating into the snow outside. The leader spat angrily. "This is not over. The council will not forget this." They dragged their wounded away, vanishing into the white forest. Silence fell again, broken only by the sound of the wind. The human lowered his blade, his chest, rising heavy with breath. Blood dripped from his arm, but his eyes were still sharp. He closed the broken door with effort, then sat by the fire. The widow rushed to him, tears running down her face. "You are hurt." He shook his head. "It will heal." She knelt before him, her hands shaking. Why would you fight so hard for me? You could have let them take me, and no one would blame you." His gaze met hers. In his eyes she saw no fear, no selfishness, only truth. "Because you deserve to live. Because someone had to say no to their cruelty, and if not me, then who?" Her tears fell faster. For years she had believed humans were monsters. But tonight, she saw what a real monster looked like. The council, who cast her out. And she saw what real humanity was. A man who opened his door, fought for her, and asked nothing in return. She whispered, voice trembling, "You gave me hope." The human leaned back, the firelight dancing across his face. "Hope is stronger than fear. Remember that." The widow looked into the fire, her heart burning with a new strength. She was no longer just an outcast. She was alive. And she carried a truth the council could not erase. Outside, snow fell silently, covering the traces of battle. But whispers had already begun in the colony. People were asking questions. Why had the council cast her out? Why did a human show more kindness than their leaders? Change was coming, slow but unstoppable, like the thaw after winter. The widow reached out, placing her hand gently on the human's wounded arm. Her voice was soft but strong. "From now on, I will not be afraid. You showed me what it means, to fight and to hope." The fire burned bright, chasing away the shadows. And in that small wooden house, 2 lives, one alien, one human, had changed forever. Hope had survived the snow.